I'm very happy to introduce a good friend of mine. His name is Martin. He works for a really cool company, I've heard, and he's done some really neat research on stealing stuff out of LastPass. LastPass, anybody here use LastPass? So you can put all of your passwords in LastPass, and then Martin can steal them out. So it's a pretty cool talk. When we do talks to kind of shake the nerves, we like to play a drinking game. And so what we usually do is have the audience yell out a word that they think we'll say very frequently during the talk. And then if we say that word, we all drink. So being that this talk is about LastPass and stealing passwords out of LastPass, what's a word that you think we might say frequently? I think I heard LastPass.
All right.
Okay, so please give a warm welcome to Martin and mahalo.
All right. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. All right. Aloha, Shaka Kong. We got free passwords here, so anyone that is outside, please come join the talk. It will be fun. So today we're going to be talking about LastPass and how... Oh, shit. Okay. All right, that was just a test. So I got to look for a different word. I'm going to just say LP or something like that instead of, yeah. All right, this is going to be tough. And you loaded this drink a lot, so. Okay, first things first, it wasn't me, all right? 3 weeks ago, there was a breach. They stole everything from LP, like hashes, all that. It was not me. Okay, if there is someone from Homeland Security, I still want my green card, so it wasn't me. I mean it. It was not me. Okay, now that I've said that, who am I? I'm a product security engineer at Salesforce, really cool company. I'm from Spain, specifically from Galicia. Just a couple of facts. We have the most beautiful beach in the world. It's not just me saying that. It's The Guardian that says it. We have really amazing seafood. And Charlie Sheen's grandfather was actually from Galicia. So if you like good food, beach, or fucked up people, just come to Galicia. It's a good place. It's a good place. Okay, so what is LastPass? I went to Wikipedia. Okay. All right. What is LP? LP is a password management service which seeks to resolve the password fatigue problem by centralizing user password management in the cloud. So I saw just a couple of hands saying that they use LP, but who uses a password manager at all? I assume the rest just reuses their password, or sorry, you changed the last character and so you feel good about it. Okay, I mean, password managers are a good thing. And there is many out there, right? LP is not the only one. I'm getting good at this. We have 1Password, KeePass, and basically all these you can group into different groups, right? The ones that are offline, the ones that are online. Some have, if you feel more paranoid, you want your data just on your machine, you will use the offline ones. If you want to be able to sync all your secrets across the devices, you will use the online ones. So why targeting password managers? At Salesforce, we have a really outstanding red team. A lot of them are here. They are organized in the CTF. You guys should check that out, too. And they told me, actually, that it would be really cool to have a password manager hacked because everything they want is right there. If you think about it, credentials for social networks, for bank accounts, for email accounts, corporate credentials, it's all in just one single place. So password managers are actually a really high-value target. So now that we understand why we want to hack password managers, why LastPass? Oh, shit. Wow. Okay. I think I'm going to need a refill. Okay. The first thing I saw, it has an enterprise edition. That's really cool. That means, and this is words, I think, of some marketing person from LP, more than 10,000 corporate customers ranging in size all the way up to Fortune 500. So really big companies use LP. And one of the other things that I really liked about LP is the fact that they don't only store credentials. You can also store credit card, personal documentation, private notes, driver license, social security numbers. And actually, there is a specific form for the different information. So this is not anymore just about credentials. It's about all your secrets. I've seen SSH keys and things like that, too. And arguably, it's one of the most popular ones, right? So the first thing was for me to check the state of the art. I basically wanted to see if already there is a lot of smart people out there checking, doing really cool research. And I saw that a lot of vulnerabilities was disclosed, and there was some really cool attacks. There is a couple of papers about DNS poisoning and cross-site scripting, doing some form injections that you can leak credentials. What I found was the fact that in order to leak those credentials, you will have to target it, meaning if you want the Facebook passwords, then you will have to inject, for example, an iframe pointing to Facebook. So there was no really way to actually say, okay, I have a silver bullet that if I do this, then I get all the vault. So that was the gap that I thought it was there. So for me, the target was the master password. Why? Well, it's pretty clear. If I get the master password, I get everything. I don't need to know anything about the content of the vault. I'm just going to get it all. And again, not only credentials, but I get all the things that you store in there, credit cards and stuff like that. All right, so what's architecture? So LP comes in comes in many flavors, right? It comes as a browser extensions. It comes as apps for your mobile devices. It comes as a standalone versions too in a USB, things like that. And it basically talks to LP back through plugins or software on your devices. My focus was on browser plugins. And the reason, again, is I thought it was the most popular part. And yeah, so I just wanted to target what I thought everyone is pretty much using. And in the end, the business logic is pretty much the same for everything. So yeah. OK, so when I looked at the LastPass browser, fuck. When I look at the LP browser plugin, it's written in JavaScript. It uses same origin policy for sandboxing. One of the things it does, it injects data into the DOM, like things like autofilling your passwords. And it has access to the file system, OK? So what are the security claims from LP? They basically tell you that they have no access to your data. And that's the big marketing thing, right? They don't want to know about your secrets. They just store it for you. And they do that by telling you that everything gets locally encrypted. And they also tell you that everything is securely stored. All your secrets, everything on LastPass side. Hey, you guys didn't notice this time. OK, and on the client side, everything will be safe. So let's check that out. So I just wanted to put this GIF here because I think it's hilarious. So we wanted to reverse those plugins. OK, I want to give a shout out to my friend Alberto Garcia. Get up, man, get up, come on. Yeah, we both started the research together, and this was actually his idea. In order to start to do the reversing, basically what we did is some instrumentation. We wrote a Python plugin, a Python script, sorry, that basically what it does, it was injecting a one-liner in every single function. And it will tell us, it will basically print out which file it was located at, that snippet of code, what was the name of the function, and what was the value of all the parameters. That gives us a chronological order of all the functions that are being called, and that is very, very valuable information, especially if we think about that we don't want to deal with the hassle of obfuscated JavaScript, right? So this was super, super handy. So again, shout out to Alberto Garcia. You guys can find him on Twitter. I think you are on Tinder too. You just swipe right, and you will find it. I will say you're on Thrinder too, if it's two of you that want to talk to him. But yeah. So what we got from it was the fact that we got all the files that are accessed, right, on the machine. We started to play with the plugin and all that. And so we were looking at the stack trace and figured out some stuff. Again, it's minimized, obfuscated JavaScript. We saw that the storage happens in SQLite databases where your data gets stored. One of the things we saw is browser-specific implementation. And I want to point this out because in this case, Firefox was quite different than the rest of the browsers, at least when it comes to the LP plugin. We figured out where all the files were located, how the storage works. We saw that they use AES, but they implemented their own crypto. It's AES, but you shouldn't be doing that, I guess. And the RSA is based on an open source library. OK, local encryption. Local encryption. They use a 256-bit AES. What they don't tell you is that they use CBC and ECB. And if you look at best practices, ECB shouldn't be used. And if you don't know why, go to Wikipedia. They will tell you. And again, they use their own implementation. They also use password-based key derivation functions, basically to strengthen your key. What they don't tell you is that they use only 500 rounds or 5,000 rounds. And the difference depends on how old your account is. I would say around accounts that are 2 years or older, they still use 500 rounds. And for some reason, they didn't retroactively updated that. So I don't know why. And again, this is good, but if you look at best practices, probably 500 is not enough nowadays. And this is putting like the paranoia hat on. And just out of curiosity, figuring out how many iterations a user has is an unauthenticated query, so anyone can find out. So let's get a little bit into the interesting part. So how is actually the encryption key generated that is used to encrypt your vault and to decrypt it? Well, it's a derivation of your master password together with the username. Specifically, they use a SHA-256 PBKDF2, using as a salt your username and the data is basically the master password, the number of iterations that you set up or that you have by default, and it generates a 32 key byte length. If I'm going too quick, let me know, guys, because the time is limited. So now that we know the encryption key for your vault, let's take a step back and look a little bit. Can you guys see the entire slide? It's a little bit, but yeah. So on the left side, what we have is the local part, okay? So on your browser, what happens is that your vault gets encrypted and decrypted. So it's true. Everything happens on the client side. So what is it actually that gets shared with LastPass? So you don't want to, how do you authenticate to LastPass, right? Because you don't want to do that with your encryption key. You don't want to do that with your master password because they don't want to know about it and you don't want them to know about it. So what they do is they apply an extra round of PBKDF2, which salt is your master password in clear text, and the data is the encryption key. And it generates, again, a 32-byte hash. And it also sends the encrypted vault. So what they claim they do on LastPass side is that they apply an additional oh, shit. I forgot about this already. Okay, this one is on you then. It's getting crazy here. Okay, so I was at the 100,000 extra rounds. We got to take the word for it, right? And the encrypted vault gets stored there too. Okay, so what does LastPass actually see? I don't. I will remember your face. What does LP see? They see your encrypted vault, and they see an additional round of PBKDF2 SHA-256 of your encryption key. And I put this here because when you go to a LP page, you see all about the key derivation and stuff, but the truth is it's not protecting your encryption key against LP, right? Because it just uses an extra round. Now, I'm not saying that it's easy to brute force that or it's doable or anything. I'm just pointing it out. The truth is it's no PBKDF2 between your encryption key and LastPass. I see you guys are starting to get bored of saying drink, but this was a big sip. This counts for the next one, I say, okay? All right, so we have now a big understanding of how it is. We understand that there is an authentication hash, which is derived from your encryption key. So let's go steal the master password. That's what we are here for. So you can remember your password, right? And that was the first thing I wanted to know. Like, okay, if I can remember this needs to get stored locally somehow. I wanted to know how. I wanted to know if I can just get it in clear text. So it is indeed stored locally, and it gets stored in a SQL database, or it gets stored in prefs.js. And here we come again to what I mentioned before. Firefox works differently than the rest of the browsers. So in this case, for Firefox, it gets stored in prefs.js. And again, they use ECB or CBC, and basically you see here two examples. When it's CBC, you see that the IV is pre-appended to it. Okay? Cool. So this is I just wanted to put this here so you guys have the information where all the files are located. And you may see that Internet Explorer is missing. And the truth is Internet Explorer is one of the most safe browsers, believe it or not, here, because it uses protected storage by default. It doesn't mean that it can't be accessed, but it's more difficult, okay? So where is the master password stored? It's in this SQLite database, and you see that it tells you right away, username and password. And the password, if you look at it, it looks exactly as I told you before, as I showed you before. It's a specific case in the column LastPass saved logins too. Hey, but that was a longer sentence. I didn't say, okay, I guess it counts too.
But you had one coming.
Eh?
You had one saved up.
Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Okay, that counts for the next one. So it is in LP save logins too. And they have a LP save logins, which is not used. I guess someone was just coding and doing some tests, and then they were too lazy to change that. And there is no root needed to access these files. Okay, that's very important. How does it look in Firefox? In Firefox, it gets stored in the prefs.js, as I mentioned before, and you can look for extensions.lp.login users that contains all the usernames, and extensions.lp.login password, which contains your encrypted password. Again, no root needed for this. All right. So the master password encryption. So how is it actually encrypted? Because we know where it is stored, but it's still encrypted. So it's AES-256. It uses a random IV, and the key is a SHA-256 of your username. What I'm saying here is that the secret to decrypt your credentials is the username. It doesn't sound like a good secret, right? So the data will look like this. They pre-append the random IV. An IV is not supposed to be a secret, so that's fine. They use a separator, and then you have the data. And the key is a SHA-256 of your username. That's all it takes. So we located the files. We know the encryption system. We have the IV. We have the key. We have the data. We have your credentials in clear text. That easy. So, and when we got to this, Alberto and me, we actually wrote a blog post, and it got on Reddit, on NetSec. It got a lot of reviews and all that stuff. And we thought it was very interesting. It was really cool. We got feedback and all that. But we disclosed this to LastPass. No, I have the previous one. We disclosed this to LP and some other vulnerabilities that we found, like web stuff on the way while doing this. And all I got was a fucking T-shirt. So, and I wanted to come to Hawaii. So I needed enough content to actually do the call for papers. So Alberto teach me to do some more interesting stuff, and I just kept going. So what about two-factor authentication, right? Okay, we have the clear text credentials, but two-factor authentication is still there, and it's actually there to actually deal with this situation when someone steals your credentials, that you can still do anything. Okay, bypassing two-factor authentication. Okay, I just want to check the time. All right, so two-factor authentication in LP looks like this, right? When you get prompt, and it supports a lot of different two-factor authentication methods: Google authentication, YubiKey, Twofer, a lot of them. And I focused on Google Authenticator, but most of them work the same way, again, because it's free. I guess it's what everyone uses the most. So the first thing I did was, okay, let me look at what happens when I get prompted for the code of the two-factor authentication. And what I saw was a bunch of parameters on a post request to login, and I started to play with this, and I saw that UUID, the parameter UUID, was the one that when I was removing it, I will be prompted for two-factor authentication, and when I don't, then I will not. So UUID is actually the trust token. I was like, okay, cool story, but where is the cookie? Where is the trusted cookie, the cookie that is supposed to be used to trust the browser? That's how you usually implement two-factor authentication, right? Sorry. So I was like, okay, what's going on? How is this request really forged? How is that UUID work? How is the token generated, the value of the UUID parameter? How is it stored, and where is it stored? So the way that the request gets forged, if you log in over the site or whatever, it's the token is actually injected into the DOM, in that event data 1, okay? So it gets injected there, so it's going to be part of your post request. How is actually that token generated? Well, they actually reuse what they use when you say, okay, generate a password for me, a random password. So basically, you can see at it that's the token as a random password that is 32 characters long. Okay? And oh yeah, and one of the important things is it gets generated a plugin installation. You install the plugin, that gets generated and stored. Okay, that is very important. And how and where is it stored? It's stored in plain text. In Firefox, it's in the file lp.suid. I guess S stands for secure, which is fucking not true. And for Chrome Safari, it's in a local storage SQL database. So basically, in local storage. Okay. And you may be wondering, okay, so what's the big deal with this, right? Well, the big deal is that browsers, for example, don't encrypt local storage. Some of them encrypt the values of the cookies, but they don't do that with local storage. The local storage DB and LPSUID are actually accessible and unencrypted. Accessible meaning no root needed. The token is stored in plain text. The token is actually injected into the DOM, so if at some point that's the paranoia, but if there is a cross-site scripting, you could steal that too. More problems, and this is important. The same token is used for all the users of that browser. Meaning, if there is several accounts or several people using the same browser, the token will be the same for them. The token will be always the same till you reinstall the plugin again, which means that untrusting the browser has actually no real effect. The token is still the same. That means that when you change your QR code, imagine the situation. Oh, my LastPass account, you go to your friend, my LastPass account. You can't interrupt me, if not, I repeat it. You go to your friend, to your security friend, and say, oh, my account was hacked and stuff. And you say, well, did you have two-factor authentication? No, I didn't. Okay, then go and do it. Well, with token fixation, you can actually set the own token. You can be proactive about that. You can actually steal the token today before before you actually activated two-factor authentication. And when the friend of the victim tells him, go and activate the two-factor authentication, it doesn't matter. I already have the token. So it's already there. So I can steal it today. You can activate it tomorrow. I'm going to still be able to use it. So we have the file. We know the encryption. We have the data. We have the IV. We have the key. And now we have the two-factor authentication. So we have the credentials, and we can bypass. It's not really bypassing because you are actually giving to LastPass what they're asking for, the two-factor authentication token. Oh, fuck, OK. When I tried this yesterday, I was much better at it. I only tricked 5 times. OK. Oof. So, OK, I know what you guys are thinking, right? We still need the user to do some idiotic thing, which is to remember the password. So what about if remember the password was not clicked, or there was no way to obtain the two-factor authentication? Okay, so everything we talked about now, that can't happen. And I was wondering about that because it was still not enough to convince the ShakaCon people to get me here for free. So, so suddenly I stumbled upon this, like account recovery. And this was my face. I was like, wait a second, how is it possible? LastPass doesn't know my master password. I'm going to start to curse in Spanish, so don't worry about it, OK? How is it possible? LP doesn't have my master password. My master password is the only way to get the encryption key. So how am I going to recover the account and be able to decrypt the data if no one knows that? And I don't know it. That's why I'm doing the account recovery. So I was like, how does this work? And the way it works is you go to the URL. It's basically LP, you know what I mean, /recover.php, and you get this. So you put your email. You get a unique link in your email. And suddenly you see this again when you click on it. And there's a big button that says, press to recover account. I pressed on it, and boom, suddenly I was looking at my vault, decrypted, with all my secrets there. And I was not storing my master password. And everything, and just like everything was there. And the fact was also that I had two-factor authentication enabled. And I never was prompted for it either. So I was like, I don't understand. What did just happen, right? So I started to look into this. I started from the email, and I wanted to know what was happening when you click on the unique link. When you click on the unique link, LP responds with a 302, and it redirects you to this URL that contains 4 parameters: time hash, username, and username hash. And where we are at is at the bottom. When you click on the button, then a post request is made to /OTP with a parameter that is change PW. Okay? All right. So the first thing I wanted to know is, okay, can I generate the URL myself? The URL that actually redirects me once I click on the unique link. Why do I want to do that? Because I don't want to have to need access to the email, right? I want to know if I can directly do this. So the time is an epoch timestamp from the moment you actually click recover the account. You enter your email, you press the button, that's the timestamp. The time hash is basically a salted hash of it. And there is also the username, and the username is a salted hash of the email. And the way I know it's salted is because I use one of the oldest techniques in hacking, which is I just ask politely to LastPass. I just went there, I asked them, hey, how do you guys do that? And they were really cool. They actually, I want to make that clear, they work with me all the time. They're really cool and fixing everything on very, very fast. Okay, so what was the challenges? I knew what the parameter was, so I needed to generate first a valid timestamp. I needed to be able to generate the hashes, and for that I needed the salt. So because I didn't know how to do the hashes, what I did was, okay, I'm going to recover my own account, and I'm going to copy the timestamp hash and the timestamp to the victim's URL. Let's see if that works. And it did work. And that tells me a couple of things. That tells me that they use the same salt for all the users, because my hash was valid on the user on the victim's hash. So now I could generate my own valid timestamp and hash it because I already had a valid hash for it. So I couldn't hash it. What I mean is I already had the hash. That also tells me that the link does actually not truly expire. Only the timestamp is validated. That means that even if you start to recover the account and you want to use that link 2 years later, the point is there is no flag on the back end of LP telling, okay, this expired. The only thing they do is just they check on the hash that it matches the timestamp, okay? And there is no need to request account recovery because I was generating a valid URL, so there is no need to initiate an account recovery. You can just generate a valid URL and that's it. So the salt is actually the secret. But still, the challenge was, even though I could reuse the timestamp, I couldn't reuse the username because I need to put there the username of the victim. So I was only missing the server salt to be able to generate the valid recovery URLs. And the truth is, salts are not meant to be a secret. They are just meant to be unique and random. And 3 weeks ago, when LP got breached, one of the things they got was actually the salt. And you may see there that it says server per user salt, but they changed that once I disclosed to them the fact that you could reuse the hashes. So now it's a server per user salt, but still, if you have it, you could generate those URLs. But I didn't have that. I didn't have the hashes. So I needed to look further. So I went to the next request. If you remember, now we are talking about the request from when I clicked the button of recover my account. And the request looks like this. It's a post request to /OTP with the change PW, okay? So what is change PW? It's a derived disabled OTP. And I will explain what that is, because that was pretty funny. OTPs in LastPass. It turns out there is 2 types for LastPass. There is... Oh, shit. I don't even get it at some point, you know. All right. 2 types. There is the true one-time passwords that you can find anywhere. You print them on your sheet, and that's used to log in an untrusted computer. You can only use it one-time password. But then they have what they call the disabled one-time password. And we're going to call it DOTP, okay, from now on. So what is a disabled one-time password? It's used to recover the vault, which ultimately means it's used for authentication. And it is set by default. So here is the difference with remembering the password. When I was stealing the master password and be able to decrypt it and all that, I needed the user to do an idiotic move. Now the idiotic move is done for you, thanks to LP. So this is set by default. But still not the encryption key. I can't use that. It's not the encryption key. But again, it's set by default. So how and where is that stored? It's unprotected. In Firefox, it's stored in a file that is a SHA-256 of your username, underscore FFSOTP. I guess S stands for secure. That's not fucking true. Needs the extra step for being 2 hex. That's fine. On Chrome Safari Opera, it's still in the SQL database. Under OTP, you can find it. So how is the request forged? Same thing. It gets injected into the DOM. And let's look at this. So how do we get from the disable one-time password to get the vault? And it looks like this. The plugin will ask local storage, as I mentioned before, for the one-time password. Once it has the one-time password, what the plugin will do is a SHA-256 of your username plus the binary version of the disabled one-time password. And then it will rehash that again with a SHA-256 of the previous hash plus the binary version again of the disabled one-time password. This looks like a poor man's HMAC, pretty much. So let's call that token, okay? And now that token is what it's used to recover your account together with your username. So what do I get when I take that token and do the request? I get the session cookie. I do get a valid session cookie. But not only that, I get the password, I get a parameter that is called pwdec_key. And now, because I have a valid session cookie, all I have to do is to use that cookie to request accounts3.php, and I get the encrypted vault. Cool. So, but what is that parameter? What is pwdec_key? It's still not it's not the key to decrypt any password yet. It's not. It's the seed to derive the key to decrypt the vault key. Okay? I'm going to repeat that again. It's the seed to derive the key to decrypt the vault key. So we have one encryption key that is the one used to decrypt your vault, and that key gets encrypted and is stored in your machine. And the key to decrypt that, your vault key, is stored in LastPass, and that's kind of what you get. But let's look more into that. Okay. So the vault key decrypts all passwords, nodes, and all that. So now what we have is the encryption key, and I'm going to call the vault key the encryption key to ultimately decrypt your vault, okay? So what's the disable one-time password again? It's actually a master password on steroids. So with your master password, if I have your master password and I try to log in, I'm going to get prompt for two-factor authentication. If I bypass the two-factor authentication, there is still other things like user alerts or IP restrictions, things like that. That doesn't happen with a disabled one-time password. I still get a session cookie, and I can do everything bypassing everything. And this was funny because I was very pissed because I still needed to query LP in order to get the pwdec key, right? I still needed to take the token, derive it, and query LP. And I didn't want it to do that. And suddenly, 3 months later, I realized, wait a second. Actually, the disable one-time password is the pwdec key. It's the same. I don't need to query LP. I already have it. So how does the vault key, the encryption key that decrypts your vault, how does that key get decrypted? You take the disabled one-time password token, which remember is a SHA-256 of the username plus the disabled one-time password, and then rehashed again. You apply a SHA-256 to it, and you decrypt the vault. That easy. So now we need to know where actually the key that decrypts your vault is stored. And it's stored encrypted. That's why we needed to decrypt it. In Firefox, it's stored in the file SHA-256 username underscore LPAL SLPS. I guess S stands for secure. That's not fucking true. And in Chrome, Safari, and Opera, it's in a SQL database. So there is no need to query LastPass anymore. I got it from here. It's all good. Why? Because now, from the disabled one-time password that is stored by default on your machine, I can get a key that decrypts the vault key that is also stored in your machine. Well, I still need to decrypt the vault, so I need to request the vault. Well, no, the vault is encrypted and stored locally by default as well in the machine. You can see it down there. And in Firefox, it's stored in the file SHA-256 username underscore lps.accounts.sxml. I guess S stands for secure. That's not fucking true. And Chrome, Safari, Opera, and all the browsers SQL databases. Awesome. So we located the token. We know how to hash it. We get the vault key decryption key. Then we get the vault. We decrypt the vault key, and we decrypt the vault. And this is all there already. There is no user interaction either on the client side. Awesome. So after all this that I told you, I did automate that all for you. So I wrote a Metasploit module, and that's already present in Metasploit, but just the part that decrypts the master password, because that's the initial research that we did, right? So I'm still working on everything that does the rest. I'm going to do a demo now, and I will be sometime in a couple of weeks when I recover from the hangover of this week and all that. I will upload it there so you guys can check it out and play with it. And basically what it does, it steals and decrypts the master password for you. It steals the two-factor authentication token. It steals the encryption key. It decrypts the entire vault for you. And it supports Windows, Mac, Unix, and all that. Internet Explorer is coming soon, and all that. So let's do a quick demo now for you guys. Okay. Let's see if it works. Thanks, Alberto, for helping out with the demo. I appreciate that. Okay, so session died. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use, I have this already set up. So basically, for the demo, what we have is this. We have Charlie Sheen with one machine. And what he did in his machine is he has his personal LastPass account, and he has a corporate account set up on his machine, okay? He has two LastPass accounts. But then his grandpa, the guy that was from Galicia, he wanted to use a computer too and check out internet. So he created an account on his machine, not a LastPass account, I mean a Windows account, for example, on the same machine, okay? So we have two accounts from Windows, and then we have two LastPass accounts on Charlie Sheen's account, and one LastPass account on the grandpa's account. Okay, that was at least 5, right? All right. Okay, with that said, what I did as an attacker is I sent to Charlie Sheen, what can you send to Charlie Sheen? I guess free Viagra, right? I sent him a phishing email, for example. I mean, that guy needs it. He's very busy, I mean. Okay, so let's say he executes that, right? You guys know how to use this. So let me just a second get this set up. Okay. We're going to migrate this, and let me make this smaller. We can use 2992. You guys can see that fine, right? Okay, so we put this into background. So what do we want to do? We want to use the post-exploitation module that I wrote. And for that, we are going to say we're going to use a post-exploitation module that it works actually on all platforms. And what it does is it gathers all the LastPass data. Okay? Okay. You better get me a refill. So how does this module look like? All we got to provide is a valid session. That's all. That's all it needs. And I will do everything for you. So I got a session 7 set up. So I'm going to set the session. And you guys ready for it? You guys can see that? Okay. So it's searching now everywhere for the LastPass databases. It found LastPass databases, so it's now looking for credentials. Now it's extracting the two-factor authentication tokens. And 321. 321. Yeah, there you go. Nice. Cool. So as you can see, as I promised, there is 3 accounts, right? So you get the Windows account, there is 2 from Charlie Sheen. And you also get information about the browser where it is. But the most important is, this is the username. And in this case, if you remember, I told you that for his corporate account with his Sheen investors, he didn't store the password because he had an enterprise account and they didn't allow that. But it doesn't matter because we use the disable one-time password to get the LastPass encryption key. And I mean the vault key. And we also got for free the 2-factor authentication. For the rest, it was even easier because I don't even need to use the disable one-time password. I just use the clear text master password to derive the encryption key. So this gets you everything you need to decrypt the vault, and obviously gets you the vault as well. Awesome. Cool. Let's go back to the presentation. Let me click play. I guess I don't need to cry tonight. But this guy, this was the most difficult slide of all the talk. You know why? You know how difficult it is to find Charlie Sheen crying? I mean, why would this guy cry? He has the best life ever. I think he's actually laughing here. Probably, that's the thing, right? I agree. I agree. So, okay, so just one last thing. I show you all this. It's really cool, really cool. But how about if there is no disable one-time password, there is no access to the machine, there is no exploit, and there is absolutely nothing, but you still want passwords? So you can use Google Docs. You get a password, and everyone gets a password. Remember when we talked about Firefox? Remember in prefs.js, the credential is where the encrypted credentials were stored, the credentials that you now know how to decrypt. Well, it turns out that people is uploading prefs.js to the internet. And they do that because they install stupid toolbars that break Firefox, and then they upload that to get help. So you only need to look for that, and you will find people uploading their LastPass credentials. Okay, that deserves a drink. People is really doing this. And I picked this Google Doc because it's the one that has the least results. And most of them is on Windows using protected storage, so you can decrypt them. But you will still find valid stuff. And I told this to LP to let the guys know that did this. But they shouldn't be using prefs.js to store all the information you need to decrypt the credentials from LP. Because then this stuff happens. And from what they told me in the next major release, they will change that. So where is my camera? Stop sharing your credentials with the rest of the world. You don't want to do that. So just to finish the talk, I wanted to give a little bit of hints of what we can do to try to prevent stuff like that. So things that you can do is very easy. Use the binary version of the plugin. Usually what we do, we go to the Chrome store or things like that to install the plugin of our browsers. If you actually go to lp.com, you can download a binary version that will install the plugins for you. What's the difference? It will actually use the secure vault of your operative system. Keychain in Mac, protected storage in Windows for all browsers. In Linux, it won't use anything. Do not store your master password, pretty obvious. Disable account recovery. I mean, you guys are smart enough to remember your password, so you don't need this, and you don't want to have that. Do not use password reminders. Activate 2-factor authentication. I mean, I just told you how to bypass it, but still a good idea. Prompt for master password to make passwords visible. And I'm highlighting here some of the things that maybe people is not aware of. But if you don't unlock your machine, someone just needs to click on the plugin and get the entire vault. But you can have it still prompt for the master password before showing the passwords, right? So that's always a good idea. And then you can add country restriction if you live in the US and you never travel. Update and randomize the PBKDF2 iterations. This is getting very paranoid, but it never hurts. You don't know if they have been for years doing rainbow tables on 500 rounds. We don't know. And this allows Tor loggings. And that's all I have. Mahalo, thanks a lot to ShakaCon. This is awesome conference. I really love it. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. I finish my drink. Any questions? What?
Recommend this versus having a
honestly, if you have an encrypted USB, probably everything to decrypt it will also be there, so everything applies, and in addition, it's more likely to lose it, right? So what I would recommend is what I mentioned in the previous slide. I do use, can I say it now? I ran out of drinks. LastPass. Oh, man, it feels good. I do use LastPass, and I will continue using it. So that's also another reason why I look at it. And I think it's a good idea. We need password managers. If you want to get a little bit more secure, just use offline ones, right? Any other questions? All right, I guess that was it for me. Thank you.